Hey friends, hello, thank you. Just a few more finishing touches here before I'm ready to start broadcasting for real. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dan. Can you see me? Yeah. How far do I lean in? I should know by this time, shouldn't I? No, not really. I'm working with a new camera. It has a narrower range of vision, so thus my confusion. Anyway, happy day, 2 days after Thanksgiving to you. Saturday, November 28th. I actually had to look it up before I could remember exactly what the date was. And the reason I'm wearing fancy duds is because I am probably going to edit this series of videos so that it looks like I'm doing it at a wedding, because this is a rare moment where I'm actually doing a full-size wedding painting as I would do at a wedding, same style and so on and so forth. In fact, I already did one. Since I'm giving you a background, I'll give you a little more. So this is actually the first time this has ever happened, that a client has asked for 2 wedding paintings, same size, and they picked the same reference photo for the bride and groom. And so this is painting number 1. They saw me do most of this at the reception, and then they asked for another one and paid for another one, of course, that I'm doing at home. Thus, I'm painting in my studio, so I'm putting on a tux and shirt. It's from my waist down. It's blue jeans and tennis shoes, I promise. Let's get official then. Listen to this, hear ye, hear ye. This is Daily Art Adventure number 999. Can you believe it? So what's next? Number 1000. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do for a special celebration. But anyway, final glaze and finishing touches on a wedding painting in my studio. Every time I do that, it hurts my ears. All right. So I called it Final Glaze and Finishing Touches. Tell you what, before I get started, let me just go ahead and outline for you what are likely to be the finishing touches for me. Not always in this order, and not always every one of these, but glaze, broken color. And I mentioned the other day, the last time I was working on this painting, that at least at this point in my journey, I keep the broken color in my wedding paintings. I'm a little more conservative in my wedding paintings than I am, say, in my landscapes or my cityscapes. So the broken color will be minimal, but a little bit. Broken color, then the final, these last 2 can go in either order. More sparkle, my favorite word for this. What is sparkle? Well, if you've followed me at all, you've heard me give you this principle that if you put down, let's say on a blue suit, if you put down a particular color of blue, and you the whole suit's the same color, right? So you tend to paint the whole thing. You're going to end up with too broad, too much of an area. The same thing would be true of the green plants back. If you do mix up a green, medium, mid-tone, dark green, and do green over, so that kind of motion right there, that will result in a kind of monotony, repetitiousness that the viewer finds irritating, awkward. And the viewer, of course, is not cognizant that it's making them feel awkward. It's my job to know what influences the viewer. It's not their job to be aware of it. So in order to alleviate or fix that, then the fix is real simple. You come back with a slightly lighter color of blue, in this case, and just, it's quite arbitrary. You can put it almost anywhere. I mean, generally speaking, toward the light, but not terribly. It can be pretty random. Same thing with the green. So if I put down a green that was a number 4 on a value scale, no, number 5, I'll say number 5, then the color I put on it is a green, same color green, but a number 4, slightly lighter. So sparkle is that same principle applied for a third time. So with the sparkle layer, I'm just looking for, is there anywhere, like I'm seeing there's a little bit too much of this particular color blue right here, just a little bit too much of it. So I'll mix again, just slightly lighter and put some sparkle in there. Same thing with the suit, same thing with anything. The brick, the orange yellow brick color, that's sparkle. And then finally, palette knife. And palette knife, kind of two things. A, smooth texture. So palette knife smooth. And B, palette knife impasto. That's the way I like to say it. Impasto, whoops, it's spelled with a P in there. Impasto, which means thick paint. You really can't do thick paint to the very last layer of your painting. Why do impasto? Because people like it. They like to see little piles of paint on their painting. It's weird, but it's true, so I do it. And why do smooth? Because nothing else on this canvas at the moment has that mirror, glassy, smooth texture that a palette knife stroke applies. So by doing that, I'm simply adding variety to the painting, and variety is the highest value when it comes to interesting marks, right? The essence of good painting is making interesting marks, and the highest value toward interestingness is variety. So that's why I would add that, simply for variety. So there's my 1, 2, 3, 4 final steps. We'll see if I follow them or not. I'm not a slave. I don't have to do any of that stuff. It's just what I've discovered for me, often works well. And I am going to start with a little bit of glazing. Now, there are times when the overall painting is dark enough or even on the verge of being too dark that I wouldn't do another glaze, because every glaze, of course, makes the painting darker, right? I'm assuming you understand that without me going into great explanation, right? A glaze is transparent color. So the effect is it makes the painting darker. But that's not the case. This painting can stand to go just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit darker. And what the final glaze does is it pops color, because transparent colors pop more. Transparent colors are prettier. There's more richness to them than opaque colors. And there's a fair amount of opacity on the canvas right now. And I'm going to cover most of it with a little bit of glaze. Whew, a little bit more information. This is fairly late in the painting process, right? How many layers have I already done in oil? 3, 4, 5, 6, depending how you count them. At that point, it's very possible that some of my earlier oils were not very fast drying. In other words, it's very likely that somewhere on this canvas is some oil paint that did not have liquid in it. That meant it dried slowly. Are you with me? If it didn't have liquid in it, it dried like ordinary oil paint, dried kind of slowly. And I know that's the case on this painting. I can't remember where, it doesn't really matter. So it would be a mistake to put fast dry medium, a glaze, on top of something that dried slowly. That would cause cracking. So my go-to next slowest medium is Neo McGill. Funny name, funny name, funny name. By the way, also another go-to slightly slower is Walnut Alkyd medium. These are both, in my book, medium slow drying, even though they're rated as fast drying, but not in my world. Compared to liquid, these are slow dry. But if you look this up, Gamblin, Neil McGill, they'll call it, I think they call it a fast dry, which is just shows how out of touch I am with with linseed oil, the old-fashioned style of painting. All right, it's enough talking. Let's paint now. And I'm guessing a little bit of Indian yellow, which Indian yellow on your palette looks quite orange-ish, but do not be fooled. When you thin out Indian yellow either with a medium or with white, it turns into a very intense yellow. All right, so I'm going to do some, oh yeah, now, forgive me, I'm not sure you guys can even see this. This is one of those times I'm going to say, trust me. And you can see that. There you go. I think you can see that one. Oh, it looks better already. You know, I was like, I wasn't sure that this was necessary. This happens so often, I promise. So this is one of those cases where sometimes you do paint by rule or paint by principle, which it goes against what I'm almost always saying, no, you don't paint by rules, you paint by eyeball. You paint with your eyes, you paint by what you see. And that is generally true, but every once in a while, like I couldn't tell by looking at this painting that any more glazing was needed. But my experience, my history told me that nah, one more transparent glaze. And as soon as, I mean, it's already so much better than it was. And forgive me, I'm not sure that the camera's even sensitive enough to pick up, or that your monitor can pick it up. But standing here in front of the painting, it's like all of a sudden the whole thing just took on a whole nother level of jewel-like color intensity. Oh, this, forgive me, this is me. This is me being weird artsy, as I say sometimes, forgive me, waxing orgasmic. At the adults only, please. At the visual beauty in front of me. That's just so fun there. Whew, so see, I'm glad I didn't just follow my eyeballs, because my eyeball said, I don't know if another glaze is needed, but my principle said, another glaze will help. And then I did it and go, oh my goodness, did it ever help? Oh my goodness. All right, now a little bit of blue glaze here and here, and I'm debating ultramarine. Yep, ultramarine or phthalo. In other words, a purplish blue or a greenish blue, right? Ultramarine is purplish blue, cool blue. Phthalo blue is a greenish blue, a warm blue. And some of you are confused by the term, and I'm not going to go into that. I've given that lecture so many times, I don't have the energy right now. Why is ultramarine cool? Because some of you might say, it has red in it. Yeah, okay. Never mind. I'm going to get myself into the lecture whether I want to or not. Nope. Let me just for the moment, I'll give that lecture another time. I've given it many times already, and I don't want to get into it. Trust me, I'm telling you the truth. Ultramarine is a cool blue. Phthalo is a warm blue. All right. That looks better too. Oh, and then the mirror up here. Oh, one more thing. I can put these brushes down, pick up a small. I am so lucky. It's so ironic that the brushes that I use more than any other in my painting process are the absolute cheapest brushes on the planet. All right. Let me describe a little bit. How do you know when a glaze is needed? One of the answers is, and this really pertains right here, whenever there's the best way to describe it, whenever there's this chalky appearance. And some of you, beginners maybe, you're going, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know why. Why does it have a chalky look? And it's the misapplication of opacity. Never mind, I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to give you the fix. The fix is do a glaze over it. When you find it's chalky, hello, Uncle. Hello, P. Maisie. Uncle 60, good question. I do remember. And it didn't work, by the way. Wait. I did it twice because the first one failed. The first one was canvas, linen, in fact, infused with concrete. And that did not work. And it wasn't because of the linen and the concrete, it was the contact cement holding the linen to the board that failed. Then the second time I did it, it was straight up concrete panels, so you can buy at a home building store. All right, now let me focus on what I'm doing here for a minute. So this was chalky. I fixed it, but now it's way too dark or way too intense. The glaze that I just did was pretty light, but it's still too much. Not to panic. Take a cotton rag and very carefully lift out highlights. And again, I always hear a beginner voice saying, well, if you're going to take it off, why'd you put it on in the first place? I know none of you would say that. But the reason is because I'm not taking it all off. I'm just, if I rub hard enough and long enough, it would all come off. But I'm not doing that. So I'm just lifting off. There we go. All right, she looks better already. Oh, you know what? I forgot to include in my list of things and list of final steps. And sorry, this is an important one. So those of you taking notes, sorry about that. I'm going to insert this one way up here. And it's real simple. You probably already knew it, but it's corrections. Corrections of any kind whatsoever. Corrections of drawing, corrections of awkward brush strokes, certain textures that don't look good, correction of texture, correction of color, correction of, so I'm sorry, that's pretty important. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. And I know that one's pretty intuitive. Most of you would do it anyway. And I have a couple. One is just in the waist of this dress right here. That's one correction. Her face is beautiful. I don't need to. I feel like I really feel like I nailed a likeness on her. There's the photograph, which you can't see. I know, but forgive me. There's the photograph. There's the painting. And again, I know you still can't see her well enough to know if it's a likeness, but trust me. Never trust anybody who says trust me, right? That's the kind of thing that habitual liars say. I'm telling you the truth, man. I wouldn't lie. You know that, don't you? Don't trust people that say that, because people that tell the truth all the time don't say, trust me, man. It's only liars. Anyway, never mind. Little spiritual nuggets by Pastor Dan. There you go. Anyway, trust me. Shut up. Trust me, it looks like her. Okay, but corrections. And now that I've put a glaze, especially on her face, her color's better, but now she really needs sparkle. Okay, that's coming up. But before I go there, there's a couple corrections. One is that the mullions, that's the boards, the lines in the windows, are in the photograph, they're actually light colored. By the way, I didn't show you this. This is sticking up above me. In the photograph, the mullions are light colored. And I like them that way, even though I'm not going to do them as bright as they are in the photograph. I need a few more strokes in this greenery right here. I need a few lighter bits. These are corrections. Lighter flowers, a little bit of strokes in here. This bench right here is too prominent, too flat. I'm probably going to put an angle. Remember that? Plane. Put an angle shadow across it. Yeah. And then her face, both her faces now need just a little sparkle. So that'll take a few minutes. The highlight the cake needs some highlight. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking and just paint here. Using some of my other favorite brushes, which tragically Jerry's Artorama has stopped manufacturing. I hope that somebody somewhere besides the Rosemary Brush Company out of Great Britain, I think, hope somebody besides them will start making long handle brushes. I probably own 40 or 50 of them, but I'm hard on my brushes. They all wear out, so I have not got forever. Rosemary makes a wonderful brush. They're just quite expensive, and I'm not sure that they sell hog bristle. They sell synthetics, and me and synthetic brushes just do not get along. It's okay with me if you get along with synthetic brushes, yay for you, but they do not agree with me. I kill them. So, and I really like bristle, which is funny, by the way. When I first started oil painting, which was only about 20 years ago, 2 years ago. Don't get me wrong, I was a full-time professional artist for decades before I started oil painting. But when I first started oil painting, I much preferred, some of you know my story, this will make perfect sense to you. I much preferred synthetic, you know, smooth, fake red sable brushes, you know. By the way, that was a good example of my hand, of my brush not doing what I'm trying to make it do. You saw it shaking all over the place? Here's another one. Why is it shaking so much? Maybe I'm nervous today. Doggone it. I wish y'all would stop making me nervous. I jest. But that's a good moment for me to make a quick comment about interesting strokes. The essence, interesting marks. The essence of good painting. This is one of Dan Nelson's most consistent mantras. The essence of good painting is making interesting marks, right? The mystery, the hard part to figure out is, okay, so what's an interesting mark, right? That's the good question, and that is not an easy answer. But one of the answers, are you ready? One of the answers to what doth an interesting mark make? You know, he's getting serious when he starts into the Elizabethan English thing, okay? So listen up. What doth an interesting mark make? It's kind of like Yoda, isn't it? When he starts talking backwards, you know it's serious. Never mind. One of the ways to make an interesting mark is, of course, to make interesting movements. But if you're holding your tool, your utensil, in this case a brush, could be a pencil or a pastel or whatever you're drawing or painting with, if you're holding a tool in what I call a proper manner, that is not the death control grip. Let me show you the improper manner. I mean, you know it already, but okay, this right here. This is tongue painting. Okay, and there are times when I have to do tongue painting. I'll just warn you right now, I'm gonna do some tongue painting on this face in just a little while. Duh, it's the size of a quarter, it's the size of my thumb, right? And I'm trying to keep a likeness, so of course I'm gonna do so. There you go. Every rule can be broken. Every rule is broken when there's a countervening, contradicting, opposite rule that vetoes or outvotes the normal rule. All right. So how do you make, one of the ways to make interesting marks is to hold your drawing or painting utensil properly. And when you do that, you don't have as much control over the tool, the device, as when you're using the dreaded death control grip. This makes sense, right? This is logical. If you're not using the death control grip, tongue painting, then your brush is going to be kind of wobbly. And this is really important for some of you, because some of you beginner painters or even older painters, I can't tell you how many literally older painters, like in their 80s, have said to me, well, I used to paint, but I can't paint anymore because my hands shake too much, and I don't want to slap them. I want to slap them, but it's not nice to slap people in their 80s. I jest. My heart breaks because I think, oh, I wish I'd gotten a hold of you before you quit. Because the fact is, most of them, I'm convinced, most of them, they never heard this lecture. So they never recovered from their death control approach to painting. And in fact, the most interesting good marks that many of you will make will in fact be the marks that you make when the brush is dancing around and not doing what you tell it to. And most of you, unless you're hearing this lecture for the first time, you've been mad at yourself when your hand does that. You go, and you turn the air blue because you think that good artists control their brushes, and that doesn't happen to them. And when in fact the very opposite is true. I remember, on a related subject, I remember when I was in college and taking art history classes, and I remember discussing, the professor discussing, okay, I'm done with the mullions. In fact, it's a little bit too much in the mullions. Let's back off a little bit. Easy. This is not an extraordinary trick for me to do, by the way. Overpaint that is too fussy, too tight, too literal, too careful, and then come back and mess it up. That is a fairly practiced trick of mine. All right, so art professor discussing Rembrandt, and he would show us, of course, his first painting when he was 16 years old or something like that, self-portrait, and then go through his entire life. And it was easy to see that Rembrandt in his 60s, the paintings were considerably messier and or looser, and all the art critics agree that Rembrandt's later paintings, his loose, messy ones, are, one might even say, vastly superior to his early tight ones. And as a young person, I sat there rather with my youthful arrogance, and I sort of thought, well, yeah, that's just because he was old and his eyesight was going and his hands were shaking. And now that I am that age that Rembrandt was, when he was doing those loose paintings, I'm convinced that I was absolutely correct. The reason Rembrandt's later paintings were messy, is because he was going blind and losing control of his hands. Mind you, I'm that age now, and I'm convinced that I was exactly correct. Are you seeing how that statement and the earlier one are coincide? That in fact, and I don't think there's any art critic on the planet that would argue that Rembrandt's 16-year-old painting when he was 16, 17, 24, 25, 30 are superior to his older, messier paintings. Right? No, everybody agrees, myself included. Older ones are better because the marks are better. One way to put it, the marks are better. The abstraction is better. So anyway, much encouragement to some of you who are dismayed because your brushes won't hold still and do what you're trying to tell them to do. No, go for it. Slap them down. Make some marks. Get outside that control zone. Because some of the most best interesting marks you're going to make are the ones that you don't make on purpose, but your hand makes for you. As I like to say, those of you whose hands are shaking, stop fighting it. Your hand is trying to turn you into a good artist, doggone it, and here you are fighting against it. There, that was quite the sermon. Thank you, Pastor Dan. There's a story behind that. I won't necessarily go into it for those of you who are not have been on for a while. Okay, I was about to start doing something else. I fixed up, I did a little bit of hard edge stuff there. That was correction. Now I have a reddish color, a dull terracotta red, one could say, on my brush right now. And I'm actually using it to do a broken color. So I'm getting a little bit out of order, and that's okay. Let's wipe these brushes off just real quick. Part of the downside, by the way, of painting with two brushes all the time is that you have twice as many brushes to clean all the time. So that really is true. But it's a price I'm willing to pay for the the art that I can achieve with 2 brushes. So I just made the paint that's on my brushes considerably redder than they were just a minute ago. And so I'm doing some broken color. Again, slightly toned down compared to what I might do in one of my cityscapes or landscapes. This broken color stage phase of painting as a separate and distinct phase is still fairly new to me. 2.5 years, maybe 3 years at the most. Most of my evolutions, they come on, they literally evolve slowly, so it's a little bit, usually hard to tell, hard to name a start date. When did I start doing this? But this is fairly recent, and so most of my paintings, I'm sorry, wrong, let me start that again. Most of my wedding paintings do not have a lot of this broken color in them. And since I'm being paid well for these paintings, of course I don't want to shock my client. This is part of of course, the challenge of doing any kind of commission painting. You don't want to surprise your client. If you want to keep making a living as an artist, surprise is not a good thing. All right. I thought I was done with the red. Okay, now I am. Looking, thinking. I think I can use the red without cleaning my brushes. Cleaning my brushes is a waste of time and a waste of paint and so forth. So I'm just mixing the red that was on my brushes. I've now mixed up with Viridian green. Are you following me? So right straight across the color wheel. So now I've got a dark neutral brown. What did I want that for? Oh, I remember. And a little bit of nip and tuck, just a tiny tuck here at the waist. Oh, I need to get the bride's picture back up here. Here's the photograph that I've been painting from. And as you can see, this part, this won't look like I'm painting at a wedding because I never have a laminated copy of the photograph at the wedding. At a wedding, I'm always just working from the screen of my phone. So, now another Kleenex wipe, but I'm not going to swish them. I'm just going to keep them so they have dark, dull brown on them. I'm going to add white to this, titanium white, so that I have a light and then some yellow ochre. I want a neutral yellowish brown. One of the things I need to fix, one of the repairs I need to make in this, I'm done with that for the moment. One of the repairs I need to make in this painting is there's too much pencil in her dress. Those of you who are maybe new, the use of pencils, the pencil is kind of like a cross between a grease pencil and a Conte crayon, if that helps you. It's wax-based or oil-based, technically speaking, even though most people that use it wouldn't think of it as an oil pencil, but it's wax, so oil as opposed to water-based. Anyway, I use pencil late in the process, early and late, simply because I like the texture, right? Because I like the scratchy lines. I like the way the lines look. But I'm down to the finishing touches on this painting, and I'm going, oops, you know what? A little bit too much of a good thing. Too much pencil. So I've mixed up a color fairly consonant, fairly matching what's already what's already here, and just covering up some of the pencil marks. That's all. Not all of them, just some of them. I like them, just too much of a good thing. I'm nearly finished with that, I think. A sigh. Did you hear that sigh? All right. I think it's time to finally clean these brushes. Let's put them down and just grab some different ones. Shorter will be okay. By the way, why does an artist use so many brushes? I remember years ago, I remember reading some early journey artist online, reading her website. It happened to be her, doesn't matter. And she was boasting on one of her painting descriptions. And I painted the whole thing with just one brush. Used the same brush throughout the entire painting. And that was one of the many times when I wanted to, when I yelled back through the internet, say, no, don't say that. Shh, 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 shh. She thought it was a point of pride that she had the ability to do an entire painting with only one brush. Well, listen, everybody has that ability. It's not a good thing. So why do most artists, why do they use many brushes? Well, it's because the essence of, now I'm not sure that every artist has the verbiage that I have, but I have verbiage for them. Because the essence of good painting is making interesting marks. And the essence of interestingness is variety. So why do you use different brushes? It's purely arbitrary. I didn't need to switch brushes. I just picked up some different brushes because it doesn't even matter, what kind or what size. They're just different brushes, period. I don't mean different. In fact, all four of them that the two long-handled ones and these, they're all filberts. So I don't mean a different kind of brush. I mean a different brush. One number 4 filbert is not the same as another number 4 filbert. Maybe when you first buy them, but after 2, 4, 6, 8 months of use, they're not the same anymore. All right, so I just did sparkle in the blue there, and it's a little bit too much over here. So here we go again. Over paint and then mess up. But you see, the marks that I'm making while I mess up are artistic marks. I'm not grumpy, I'm not erasing, I'm not going, that was stupid, I'm not cursing myself. Not at all. Let's see. I have their faces to do. No, I'm going to clean these brushes. I hate to waste time and waste paint and waste Gamsol swishing brushes. If I was a good painter like Michael Carter, I'm being facetious. He is a great painter, don't get me wrong. But he is very, very disciplined and fastidious, OCD, one might say, in his handling of brushes. And he never cleans them. He never swishes them. It's amazing. I wish I could be like him. It's sort of like I wish I could be a morning person, I really do. But I ain't. Get over it. Leave me alone. All right. I got their faces to go yet. I'm delaying that. I'm going to make that the last thing I do. I'm going to do a little more sparkle. So I'm picking up, right at the moment, titanium white, a little bit of Naples yellow. Naples yellow is a brown, by the way. It's not yellow. Yellow ochre is not yellow. It's brown. Just make sure you have that mentally in your right category. So I have a warm white on my brushes. And this is some good stuff for doing sparkle. The most obvious place is these candles. I mentioned yesterday, and I sure hope my my client agrees with me. If I can get them over the initial shock, I think they'll be fine. But at this wedding, don't tell anybody, but they had candelabras, you know, candle sconces on the fireplace and in the fireplace, and they were not lit. Oh my goodness. I'm half thinking now that next time that happens to me, I may actually go find the manager of, you know, of the event and say, psst, psst, your candles aren't lit. This is bad form. Some of you guys don't know it's bad form. I mentioned this the other day. You didn't grow up in a home. Anyway, Emily Post, you know, that kind of Miss Manners. Dear Miss Manners, is it appropriate to have candles, when you have guests in your home, is it appropriate to have candles on your table or on your mantle or whatever and leave them unlit? Emily writes back, hell no! I mean, Miss Manners writes back. Sorry, but that's the truth. No, it's rude. Why? Okay, I'll give you, I said this the other day too, forgive me. I'm getting on a rant here, aren't I? About candles, for goodness sake. If you have candles anywhere in the room, when you have company over, now some of you guys never have company over, I'm not talking to you, you have other issues we need to talk about another time. When you have candles and they're not lit, what you are telling your guests is, oh no, no, we only light our candles when important people come over. Do you hear me? There you go. Some of you never thought about it. I know it. That's why I'm telling you these things. Thank you, Pastor Dan. I see a pattern coming on here. Do you guys see? You liked me back. You liked me back when I was young, back in the olden days when there was none of this pastor crap showing up. Oh. Anyway, there you go. So I have lit the candles, and what is really funny is in 10 years, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, this painting will tell everybody what this event looked like, and everybody will know that the candles were lit. And the fact that the host committed a grave, it's gotten grave now, do you hear me? Things are getting serious. By the way, now I've got this pale, almost a yellow ochre, a little bit more orange on my brushes, and I'm just using it right now for sparkle. This is classic sparkle. I want to put it where there's already, this color already exists. But I want to make it just one tick, as I call it, one tick lighter. I used to think that a tick was not at all a measurable unit, but now I discovered some months ago, no, when I say one tick, I actually do mean something. I can define it. I can describe it for you. All you have to do is pull up on your computer, your phone, a 10-degree grayscale. You know, white at one end, black at the other, and 9 or 10 steps in between, right? A tick is the difference from one square to the one beside it. Turns out that is exactly what I mean by a tick. And of course, I can't literally measure it, but that's the idea. So for sparkle, I'm not putting this color down on anything except an area where it's like just a tiny bit darker than what's already here. That, I just broke my rules. No sooner is it out of my mouth than I break the rule, but it still works. Yeah, that comes up often. Learn the rules. There are many of them. There's hundreds of them. Some people say there are no rules. I've talked about that quite a bit. There's two kinds of people who say there are no rules. The first is bad painters who actually don't know the rules. That's why they're bad painters. And some college professors, art professors, fall into that category. And then there are people who do beautiful paintings, like I think Michael Carter is one of these. He says there are no rules, and he says what I think, and forgive me if I'm misrepresenting you, Mark Carter. He says, you know, give me a rule and I can show you a painting that violates it. Well, what we have there is someone who is maybe tremendously visually gifted as an artist, but they're not terribly gifted as a linguist. So it's simply a matter of semantics. All right, I think I'm done with that. Let's pick up some other brushes again for a third time, fourth time, just for variety. Let's go smaller. I need to do a little bit of sparkle in the greenery around here. So there's two kinds of people who say there's no rules. One is bad painters, and that's why they're bad, because they don't think there are any rules. The other is fabulous painters, but they just aren't overly given to linguistic sophistication. And it's simply a matter of semantics. And I promise, if somebody's a good painter, it's because they're obeying the rules. And typically what they mean is there's exceptions. Well, that's why the name of my fictitious book, I promise it's not actually fictitious. In fact, just to give you just a breath of encouragement, there is one of the work. Am I pointing the right way? Yeah. There's one of my work panels. That's those are pages 26 through 34 of my up-and-coming book called The Breakable Laws of Painting, which I think is a great name for a book on painting by me. Perfectly appropriate name. The Breakable Laws of Painting. Every law can be broken. Thus agreeing, if you will, with Mark Carter. But you got to know what the rules are, otherwise you're probably just screwing up. I know that's harsh, but somebody out there needed that. God, I've got green. Let's see if there's a place for a little broken color here somewhere. Where else can I sneak in some little bits of green on objects that are not green? Okay, that's what makes broken color. Same value, same lightness, darkness, but different color, contrasting color to what's already there. That's broken. All right. Oh, one stroke right here would be good. Subtle. Okie dokie. Let's clean brushes, small brushes now. I'm going to do some on the face. I think probably I will, for some reason, hang on, I'm not getting any chats here. Let's turn this on again. Whoops, maybe nobody's chatting. Is that true? Huh, that's funny. All right. And I'm going to pull up photograph again. I almost mentioned earlier that I laminate these photographs because it makes the color more accurate, makes the color pop. This is just a cheap, simple inkjet print right off my HP printer right there beside my computer behind me. So it's nothing fancy, but when you laminate it, the colors come alive. So that's why I laminate those prints. All right, time to zoom. Is anybody saying anything out there? If one of you who's watching would just give me a quick little, yeah, I'm here, to let me know I haven't fallen through the something rabbit hole. All right, this is a time, if I can do it, I need to correct the color, which in this case means pump up the color a little bit more intense on both of their faces. That's a good place for me to be. I like to be in a place where slightly lighter and slightly brighter is perfect for a last layer. Oh, good. Thank you. for that. P. Maisie. I feel terrible. I don't know how to pronounce your handle. You want to give me a word of advice? I'll be glad to follow it. Maybe it is P. Maisie. Or maybe the P is silent. Pamazi. Or maybe it's Pamazi. Or maybe it's P. Mazi. Oh, anyway, never mind. I'm driving you crazy now, aren't I? Thank you for speaking anyway. You didn't know you were going to suffer so much abuse. Oh, P. Maisie. P. Maisie is right. All right, I'll take it. Thank you. Good. I'm glad you're learning a lot. I appreciate that. That's what I'm here for. Whoops. Hang on just a second. We're about to disappear. Whew. All right. That was close. All right. I'm going to take a minute to move you guys closer, because pretty much all I've got to do on this painting now is touch up the faces. Bear with me just a minute while I get everybody pointed in the right direction. All right, is that as far as it is? That is. It's as far as I can zoom. Now, speaking of Mark Carter, I was speaking of him twice so far today, and besmirching his good name. Not really. I'm a big fan. Trust me, I'm a big fan. And he's, I hope you would say, as I am, he's very generous in his teaching. He gives almost everything away for free, which is just amazing, because he's an amazing artist. He's a big dog. He's not like me. I'm not a big dog. Ruff, ruff. See, I'm a little dog. He's a big dog artist. He's, I think, the official painter of the both Bush presidents, or maybe just one, I don't remember, but one of the Bush presidents. So, you know, that's pretty big doggish. And one of his best lessons in portraiture is don't blend. Put down steps of color, mixed color, to achieve the final value color you want. Don't put down dark next to light and then blend the two together. Did you hear that? That makes sense? He says put down dark and then mix up the color you want in between and put that down, and so on. Really good advice. And it's especially pertinent for where I am at this stage with this painting. Now, of course, not everybody agrees with him. For instance, William Bouguereau, French, 1890, would disagree vehemently with that. William Bouguereau smoothed out all his paintings like glassy smooth, both physically and brush strokey. I'm running out of how to say that word. Both the literal fixture, the literal texture, and the colors were all extremely blended. So that was his objective, goal, and so forth. So, but I think what Mark Carter is reflecting is, in fact, a more, as do I, even though I love Bouguereau, I don't want to paint exactly like him. Mark is reflecting a more 20th century, not contemporary. That would put you going in the wrong direction, because he's certainly not contemporary. But the 20th century was overall in art was a great revolution, where we discovered that our role as painters is not to paint pictures, but to paint paintings. That's my terminology. One of the key differences between those painting pictures and painting paintings is that when you're painting a painting, you're more concerned about brush strokes than you are about literal copying, similitude, accuracy, realism. Okay, the strokes themselves are paramount over the picture. And I, as you know, if you follow me at all, I absolutely concur with that. And so Mark Carter's approach, that is to say, don't blend, don't go blendy, blendy, blendy in between your colors, like I'm doing right now. Here's a light spot, and I want to do a color that's right in between that color and the color beside it, so I mixed up something in between and put it down. And that lets the viewer still see tiny brush strokes. Pretty fine at this point, pretty fine. Sometimes I call this, what I'm doing now, sort of almost cheating, not quite, almost cheating, but adding brush strokes this late in the process. I call it Sargentizing, as in John Singer, Sargentizing my paintings, whereas it was a little bit too smooth. Now I'm coming back and adding brush strokes late in the process. Almost cheating, not quite. I think I thought that would take longer than it did, but I think that's all right. I'm going to do a little bit of, as you can see, a little bit more death control grip painting, right? So there's a time for everything. If you're doing a portrait the size of your thumb, and by the way, I did this a couple days ago, and I did use a Winsor Newton Series 7. Let me pull up, best brush ever created, like this. And I just realized right when I was saying that, oh, I want a little bit more of that. So in other words, I didn't do all of those details with a bristle brush. All right, I need a little highlight on her nose and on her eyelid, under her eyebrow, and above her eyebrow, and on her forehead. And on her top lip. In the photo, the light just caught her top lip above the red of her lip, her skin, right where it turns into lip, and it's very fetching part of her face. So it's something I want to capture and have done so now. Tiny, again, here I am. This is the very thing that I usually decry. That is the death control grip. At the same time, even though I'm using the death control grip, I'm trying to Sargentize the painting, right? Even though I could do absolutely perfectly glassy, smooth strokes with a Winsor Newton Series 7 number. Oh, it's a Robert Simmons, sorry. My mistake. I didn't look at it. No wonder it wasn't behaving perfectly well. Anyway, with a Winsor Newton, I could do a perfectly smooth, classy, invisible brushstroke. But of course, that is not what I want. I do not want a perfectly invisible brushstroke. I want a visible brushstroke. All right, this may be right here. This may be the final strokes. We'll find out in a minute. This may be the final strokes I put on the painting, which is warm light, off light, the faintest of yellow-orange on her dress up here. So this is sparkle, again, to give you a category. And except perhaps for, his collar and maybe the candle flames down here, this is the lightest, brightest, whitest point on the whole painting, as it ought to be. Let me back you guys up so you can get more of the overall view. Let me get this out of the way. No more, hang on. Sorry, it's crooked. Let's see if I can get a better lighting for you. Oh, that's terrible. Let's try this. In some ways that's better. In other ways it's worse. So sorry about that. Here comes the glare again. I'll pick you up in a minute and give you a guided hand tour of the painting. Oh, that was a good smear right there. And let's do the same thing over here on this cake. If you want something to look like it's glowing, like this tablecloth, that corner of the table or the corner of the cake, smear it. Make it fuzzy, not sharp. Sharp does not suggest glow. Fuzz, soft edge, smeared paint gives the impression of glow. Whew. Okay, I misspoke a minute ago. I said this might be the last thing that I do on the painting, and I was completely forgetting for a moment. The palette knife, otherwise known as the palette knife, the palette knife trick. Okay, now let me tell you how I do this. When I'm doing, and again, the only purpose for this is that at the moment, all of the brush strokes on the canvas are brush strokes or in pencil. And if I introduce a palette knife stroke, it will have a different feel because it'll have that glassy, you know what I'm talking about, right? Palette knife stroke feel. So what I typically do is I'm looking all over on the canvas. I don't want to change color at all. I want to match essentially what's already there. So I think I've matched this color right here. This would be a good place for just a little loaded up paint on one edge of this blade and just drag it across the painting a little bit. A little bit too sharp right there. Good enough. So now all of a sudden, I'll do a little bit more. This is the only place at the moment on the whole canvas that has that glassy, smooth, the effect you get when you go like this. And why does that matter? Well, it doesn't. It's just variety. At the same time, by the way, so this is pretty typical, I'm also doing a little bit of impasto, a little bit of build-up paint. And again, you might think it's crazy, but if you want people to like your paintings, guess what? And I could do, maybe in the future I will, I don't know. If you want people to like your paintings, put some impasto on them. Have some paint that sticks up, like the curlicue on a Dairy Queen cone. You understand? I've got a correction to make that I mentioned way long time ago and I never did anything about. That was this this bench right here. It's a little bit too, I'm breaking a rule right here. Well, we'll see if I break it. I'm doing dark transparent mark on this bench. Oh, I guess I'm not going to break a rule after all, okay? It would be, if I left it just like that, that would be breaking the rule, but turns out I'm not going to break that. I'm going to mix up now a slightly lighter version of what's already there and do a light stroke. That's too light. That's not one tick. You see, that's 2 ticks. There, that's better. This, by the way, is that rule that I say whenever you're drawing painting a flat plane, it's usually the side of a building. If you're doing landscapes, don't paint it flat. Don't paint it flat. Put a diagonal shadow across it. Same thing. It's a bench. Same rule. Looks better. It's crazy. That is just crazy, but true. It looks better. Okay, back to some of these bricks. I think that some of the best, easiest places for me to sneak in some of this sneaky impasto and or palette knife is in the brickwork here. I think you understand this, but let me be clear again. It's the artist's job, you and me, if we're the artists, it's our job to understand the rules, so to speak, and the rules are knowing how the general population, how the average human being reacts, responds to visual stimulus. That's our job. It's our job as artists to know how most people are going to respond to this and that and this and that, color, line, shape, design, value, texture, and so on and so on and so forth. It is not the viewer's job to know why they are moved or why they feel the way they feel. It's not their job at all. So I don't expect any non-artist to walk up to this painting at any time in its 500 years of existence and say, golly, would you look at that? The artist used a palette knife and made those marks, and that gives me a sense of completeness because of the variety. Now, do you understand? That's absurd. I don't expect any non-artist to walk up and understand that. Please understand, when I'm talking about these principles, these esoteric rules, they are esoteric. The non-artist has no idea why they like your painting. It's only their job to like it. It's your job as the artist to know what people like. I don't know if I've ever said it that way before. That's brilliant. Thanks, Dan. Say it again. It's not their job to know why they like your painting. It's your job to know what they like. Now, none of this has anything to do with the broad stroke of the art kookiness that we've been whacked with in the 20th century. The elitist enlightenment. And anyway, I could go on and on. Let's not go down that. Let's not go down that speech today. I don't have the energy. It's our job. Let me use an analogy, a comparison. Whoops! You fell over for a second there. Same thing for music. It's the composer or the performer, either one. The composer or the performer. It's their job to understand how this turn of a phrase, how this note, how this suspension, how this tiny rubato is going to affect the audience. It's not the audience's job to recognize that a rubato just affected them. That's not their job at all. But it is indeed the composer's job. Let's go to the performer. When a performer puts a certain grace note on a note, it's their job to know that most people will find that pleasant. Part of what makes this so clear to me is that there are many immature musicians, we all start out immature, right, that don't know that, and they do funny things on their instrument or their voice or whatever, and because they don't know that, you know what, that thing you do, you think it's good? It's not. And I have actually literally had helpful, good artists tell me things like that in my art career. See that thing you do, you think it's good? People are not liking that. And of course, they mean people in the general average human being, if you will. Let me do a little bit more. I've gotten away from palette knife and impasto here for just a moment. Let's go back to it for just a moment. There we go. That was a nice mark. I love it when it's just the right color. Okay, a little bit more. I see another place for a little bit of impasto. Whoops, and hang on, gang. I have completely run out of titanium white, so let's get that fixed. Oh my goodness. I couldn't get that one open. Thankfully, I have another titanium white that I can get open. All right, looks like I'm going to finish this painting with you guys watching the whole time. All right, I was trying to mix up this. One of my favorite places to insert, kind of sneaky, to insert impasto and a palette knife texture is in a very neutral tone, neutral color area. So let me just test. Yeah, very perfect. The side of this table. And I don't know, it's just me being weird. That it's subtle. You expect to see, I'm giving you what I think most human beings, they would expect to see palette knife impasto on a highlight, like let's say on this side of that cake, which is, a matter of fact, where I plan to do my next stroke. They expect to find it there, but they don't expect to find it in a neutral area like the edge of that table. And that, to me, that's just kind of a extra little surprise.
Love you.
Bye. Love ya. That's Mark. Mark is leaving. Say bye to Mark. Uncle Mark. Nancy's brother. He's been with us for the holidays. Been very sweet. And his 3 kids and 1 kid-in-law, 1 daughter-in-law. Delightful, delightful time at our house. All right, now just, I keep saying just one more thing, don't I? Okay, just one more thing. Hey, Marjorie, you're oh, good, you're quilting. That's a great use. Oh, your grandma's name is Precious Mazzy. Fantastic. Palette life painting. Oh, let me give you another little tip. Let me see. I do this often. Okay, let's pick one. I'm going to be arbitrary. Let's go to the candles in the fireplace for a minute. Let's pick this one right here. Put down some wet paint. Smear it. Maybe even smear it twice. And then put down some fresh paint on top of your smears. Get it? So wet paint, smear, and then wet paint, and you're done. That makes sense? You don't have to do that last stroke with a palette knife, but I decided to do so in this case. Let's touch the groom's wedding ring. Oh, no, it's not his wedding ring. It's his right hand, so. But he's wearing a ring there anyway. It shows up in the picture, so I thought it was a nice touch. Maybe, as I said, I keep saying just one more thing. So maybe just one more thing. This is in my list of finishing touches. Those who joined us late, I had 5 finishing steps. Glaze, number 2, I missed it. Corrections, broken color, sparkle, and palette knife, smooth and impasto. But of course, palette knife is not the only way that you can create impasto. You can also do it with a brush. Just a little bit of fatness, a little bit of thick paint here and there. And I want it the same color. I don't want to be introducing new stuff, new information, so to speak, other than the texture. And I did anyway. It's a little bit too light, but that's right. It looks fine. If I did too much of that, it would become overworked. Too much of anything, of course, becomes overworked. In fact, speaking of overworked, I now feel that this area right here is a little over dotty, too many dots. And I think some of them are fresh today. Yeah, good. Okay, some of them are. Oops. So what I'm doing right now is what I call anti-dotification. You regulars, you old timers, you know, these are things we've made up over the years. So I just need to, if they were still wet, some of them were, but most of them weren't. If they were wet, I just smear them. That's anti-dotification. If they're not wet though, then I paint over them with marks that are not dotty. Dotification. And believe it or not, these are terms that me and my viewers have come up with over the years. especially with reference to sky holes, or what I prefer to call tree holes. Tree holes poorly done end up being, sky holes poorly done end up coming across, as sky dots. And whenever you have sky dots, you need to get out the de-dotification or anti-dotification, whichever you prefer. All right, I think I'm finished. Whew! What a relief. The only thing I'm going to do now, well, I'm going to let it dry, by the way, a couple days, and then varnish the whole thing. I very much prefer glossy varnish. I'll paint the top and the bottom edges. The sides are already painted. I'll paint the top and the bottom in acrylics to match, and put a wire on it, and I'm ready to deliver. But there is one more thing I have to do here, and that is sign it. Oh boy, and I've given you my my signature rant so many times. Some of you are saying, no, don't do it again. But what the heck, why not? You see me do everything else. Let's do this last thing. Whew. So, forgive me. Those of you who are regulars, you can leave us now because you've heard this. So whatever you do, don't ask them about signatures, they're saying. Okay, here's some of my signature rant. Number one, this is the most important. Make your signature legible. Okay, now, let me back up. If you're just a hobby painter, you don't expect to sell any paintings, really, you don't expect to create any kind of following, then you do whatever the heck you want. Okay? But if you're a wannabe professional painter, if you want to sell some paintings, then back to my original statement, doggone it, make your signature legible. Whew. To do that, you need a good quality brush. Preferably a Winsor Newton Series 7, which of course is a watercolor brush, not designed for oil paints at all. So apologize to your Winsor Newton Series 7 as soon as you take it out of the package and say, sorry, you thought you were destined for years of use as a watercolor brush. Well, it is your lucky destiny, Mr. Brush, to be abused by me in oil paints for my signature. Okay, I'm almost finished, so I'll give you the rest of my rant. Do not use initials. If all of your friends call you JP, then you can sign your painting JP. But if all of your friends call you Jimmy, sign it Jimmy. And some people say, yeah, but the painting's so small, man. Okay, write it smaller. Now, sometimes if it's a microscopic painting, you can use initials, but give your last name anyway, or your first name. Anyway, don't use initials. It's Bush League, it's amateur, it comes across as amateur. Of course, G. Harvey. Okay, if you're as famous and as good as G. Harvey, you're not watching me, so never mind. You can do whatever the heck you want, Mr. G. Harvey. The rest of you, pay attention. There. I think I'm finished, and I think I'm happy with it. Thanks for watching, you guys. And the question here, do you ever put a thin layer of Vaseline on the threads of the cap? Oh, yeah, I do sometimes. Good point. Yes, that's a great idea. Marjorie says, thank you for these finishing steps. Excellent. Thank you. You're very welcome. Oh, my goodness, Marjorie, first time here. How about that? You just never know. Well, I don't know if you noticed or if you caught the beginning of this broadcast. The reason I'm wearing a tux, blue jeans and tennis shoes from the waist down, is because I'm probably going to edit these videos and do some speed ups, time lapse, and so on, and present it as if I'm actually painting at a wedding. So that's I don't normally dress this way for a broadcast. I dress this way at weddings. I don't dress this way in my studio. But today was Daily Art Adventure number 999. I am not kidding. That means my next broadcast is probably on Monday, is number 1,000. That's not my 1,000th broadcast, it's just my 1,000th daily art adventure, which of course is the lion's share of my videos on YouTube. And so hooray for me. I started on January 1st, 2017, so it's taken me nearly 4 years to do 1,000 broadcasts. And some of those broadcasts are 3, 4, 5 broadcasts long, so I'm actually well over 1,000. But anyway, it has been fun. I'm going to continue. I am, let me talk to you for a minute while I'm cleaning up. Let me show you what I'm doing, I guess, since I'm cleaning up, I use glass for a palette. Glass against a warm brown background. It's a little bit too dark, but I've gotten used to it. And aluminum, I made this aluminum edging all the way around the edge. So clean it up with a razor blade. Oh, that's right. So I've just gone through a change in life, much to my shock and amazement, but frankly, some delight. I'm not complaining a bit, but I'll go ahead and freak some of you out and talk the way I talk in my normal life. If you don't like it, then you won't come back. About 2 months ago, I sat down early in the morning with my journal, open up, and the Lord said to me, "Okay, you're done." I said, "Done what?" He said, "You're done being a full-time artist." I said, "What?" Well, some of you are like freaking out, like, and some of you are just full of like, "Oh, that's so stupid. I hate it when these religious people blah, blah, blah." All right, that's you. I bless you. Sorry I'm messing up with you. Sorry I'm messing you up. But anyway, the Lord said, "You're done." So it's a long story. I won't go into it. But I'm back paying my bills, not primarily through my artwork, which I've done for the last 16 years. And instead, I am, it's hard to describe me, truly. Whew, by the way, I could take this off. I guess pastor would be the most ordinary American word for it.